I looked back and counted how many music projects I'd released over the years, and it turns out that my latest album was number 50. I wanted to find a way to talk about it as objectively as possible. So the plan is to start with projects that got almost no exposure and like 3 people listened to them and you've probably never heard of them, all the way to over inundation. I hope that none of this comes off like I'm doing it sheerly for my ego. Of course, that's part of it. I'm human. But if there's one thing I want people to get from me putting out and talking about 50 albums, it's DIY punk rock spirit. That anybody can do this. If I can just decide that I'm a new band one day, so can you, and you should. Diggy Splash and the Bad Decisions wasn't just a band, it wasn't really a rap group, and it wasn't really just a multimedia experience. It was a fucking cult. We had costumes, we would hand out food mid-show, I made videos to project behind us.
Fuck that first shit, start a fucking riot! Fuck that first shit, start a fucking riot! Fuck that first shit, start a fucking riot!
When it was time to put out an album, we wanted to do it differently, just like we did everything. We bought a bunch of flash drives, we put music videos onto them, decorated them with crafting little colored spikes, and then sold them on a mannequin's hand on keychains halfway through our show by having our friends dress up in lingerie and bullet vests and weird outfits and walk through the crowd selling them for $5.
Laughing. Clown isn't laughing. Clown doesn't chuckle. Clown on the ground and he cried in his knuckles.
The Washington Leesburg Punk Alliance, aka the WLPA, is fucking hilarious because after I had only ever put out 2 musical projects, I decided to shake things up because it was getting boring and it was too easy to make albums. I'd made 2 that I decided to write an album with my friends as fast as possible. So we kept the tape running, and the first time we would get through a song, cut, print, that's what you're gonna hear. As This Town Turns to Dust was my first rock opera. It was made all with a little MIDI keyboard. It was about this big. And then I took my dad's acoustic guitar and strummed it out and then distorted it so it sounded like I was a full band. The band And More, and the very first music project I ever recorded. If you don't like it, call us gay.
Are you guys Ricky Holloway's band?
Yes.
I heard he's gay, is that true?
The name And More is because on like the bills we would be booked, it would always be this band, that band, and more, and we were And More. So we just started calling ourselves that.
I'm on my mind now. Just to the violence, remember what I did.
I don't have copies of this. If I like went to high school with you or ran into you as a teenager and gave you a copy of this EP, I know it's not very listenable, but send me some because the only piece of it I have is this little clip I'm about to play. Ready? Yeah! Songs for Jen. When I went to college at Mizzou here, I lived in the art dorm, McDavid, and I started listening to Bright Eyes and Postal Service. So I turned into that white guy with an acoustic guitar and wrote a bunch of songs of my own and just called it what it was because I'd recorded them for my ex-girlfriend.
It's cold when you're on the road, but there's a heater and a radio.
The band Danceaholics. Before I joined the punk band Task Force, Nate and I, from Task Force, started this group that was solely meant to make fun of local bands. So almost every song was us just picking a local band and then making fun of it and trying to sound like them, but saying the stupidest shit we can think of. We would buy an ounce of brick weed at a time and try to smoke as much as we could and then hit record to songs we had just made. All I can remember of the finished product is that when we showed our older friends that were punk and cool, They just did not say a word. We decided to keep it as a CDR and not actually print them and distribute them. At the time, in the punk world, everybody was putting out these little 7-inch records, and that's how people were distributing their stuff. It was called Wish It Was a 7-inch, and we took a picture for the cover that was Nate and I in front of the punk space at the time with our pants completely down, wieners showing, looking disappointed at our junk. Signs Boutique. I've had quite a few projects I've called my secret album. This one is the secretest of those. I had a bunch of beats that I'd made in high school that I really liked. So, without telling anyone or putting my name on it, I just put it online. The truth about what happened. As an 18-year-old, I was about to go to college and I wanted to get a bunch of stuff off my chest. And while I'd had a bunch of little musical projects, none of them were feature length or felt complete. Does this sound familiar? I compiled all my best lyrics and all my best chord progressions and just worked my ass off and make this thing that I ended up becoming very embarrassed about and never showing anyone. Luckily, after showing Dickie Splash, he encouraged me to put it online, and I did, and since then it's found a little following.
Get your morals right, put your sheets in tight. Better stand up straight, boy, don't be late. It's time to learn. Time to learn.
Sex is the devil, don't pop pimples, be home by 12. Only hate people who hate other people.
This is my last time here. Some of my albums and a whole bunch of videos I made were at CAT TV, which is Columbia Access Television. Redundant, I know. CAT TV. Their funding got cut and they had to move out of that space. So on a whim, the day of, I decided to take a bunch of verses I had laying around and make it an album that was also a live concert.
Can't go back, but I had to try. Walking around half alive in the afterlife, asking why did the mastermind. I grabbed the mic so I could amplify.
The Renaissance EP. This is definitely the blemish. This is the embarrassing one. I'm rapping over stolen beats. It's sloppy. Pompey and I recorded it in like a week or two. We were convinced it was the best thing we'd ever done. And we went to a show and we arranged that if you paid for your ticket to get into the Blue Fugue, you also got our EP. So we kind of forced it on all these people. And the cover art, it was just the sloppiest hand-drawn shit you've ever seen.
When Eminem was mostly shady, beefing with Cage, I was whacked like Jay-Z, ghost riding for Dre. I smoked swag blunts, kept my mind in the days, till I woke up to say what I'm about to say. Stay asleep, young brothers, cause you can't go back.
Spirit Animal. These songs are really stream of conscious, and they're mostly written while I'm couch surfing after just getting sober. There's a song called Demons that I made in my sister's bathroom, sitting on the bathtub with a tiny guitar amp in my MacBook, and it came out really well.
My head like, yeah, yeah. A lot of demons in my head like, whoa, whoa.
Things Get Bad in a Weird Way. This is just an EP that's about the pandemic. I think if you're a prolific local musician, it's mandatory that you write an album about the lockdown or about COVID. So that's what this is. And it's just me having fun, freaking out alone. Oversharing. It just came out. It's me playing all the instruments. I really tried to sound like a band. I tried to make a cohesive album, and I tried to just bare my soul. Imaginary Friends. The fun thing with this album is that I made 5 music videos and put one out once a week the month it came out.
We were lost at sea, where these men became my brothers. We cursed the sky, we cursed the wind, we cursed the rudders.
When paranoia pays off.
You always say the right things. I only say the right things when you're around.
Spoiled Rotten is a band I joined right before I got sober. It was a party band. It was a pop punk band of sorts, or punk pop. When I got sober and I was in the band, I remember showing up to practice and I couldn't focus enough to get my fingers on the frets, and I was manic and pacing and probably not fun to be around. I never got the message that I was out of the band. I just logged on to Facebook and saw a post said, "In search of a bass player," and I was like, no, that makes sense, that makes sense.
See the same things every day, working my life away, and only the bottle is good to me. Oh.
Invaded, aka 42005. This is my high school rap project. Some of the guys from WLPA were recording another punk album, and we're listening back, once again, not happy with how we sounded, but at the end of the tape, we decided to, as a joke, record the song Paul Revere by the Beastie Boys, and the drummer did the drum part, and we just yelled it, just because he knew that drum part, and we sounded pretty good.
You got the boom. You got two choices of what you can do. It's not as decision as you can see. I can pull you away so you can ride with me.
And I realized maybe I sound better as a rapper. The idea was that it was gonna be Star Wars themed, but then, oh boy, we were just on drugs and kind of lost our minds and decided we were actually gangsters about halfway through. So it's to varying degrees of listenability, but I spent a lot of time on the beats, and it's just us having fun as teenagers.
Sober, almost over, lucky like a whore with a 40 new clover. Small town horror, here to make it sure. Ran for the board of my damn death order.
Miss my Ritalин's wearing off. Can I take it with a shot of smearing off? And to top it off, can I drink from the bottle till my head pops off?
Everything You Never Wanted is another album made here during the pandemic. But it's like a rap album, except I think there's 8 bars of rap on it. It's a very emo album. I kind of put myself back in the place of what it felt like to be a teenager while I was writing the lyrics. But now listening back, it actually is some like honest expressions of my feelings that maybe I just wasn't ready to admit.
Back turned on your side, half smile, full lie.
Meditate for hours just to tell you that. Found a cure, but don't take me hours in the street. Back to the shit where you want you to know my name. Dust in my eyes, rust in my mind, trust in my life. I'll tell you, so do I, so do I, so do I.
Johnny Rocker and the Motherfuckers. My friend Bud and I thought it was hilarious to sing metal songs about cutting our genitals. Eventually, I decided to make an entire album about cutting my genitals. So every song had to be gore and penises. The fun story about this is that I performed Johnny Rocker live once and got the Bone Man and my brother Matt to be my backing band, which really was them just making smoothies as I mic'd the blenders. We handed the smoothies out to like the 11 people that came to the show at a venue called the Glory Hole, and then they pulled out silly string and shot it over everyone, which got in everybody's smoothies and ruined their moods. So we just watched as everyone was so happy to have something to drink and then so disappointed that we shot silly string into it immediately afterwards. That was probably 10 years ago, and I still feel terrible about every single aspect about this project.
Will it blend? That is the question.
Trauma Journals. It's 8 songs in 12 minutes. It flies by. It came out on cassette, and it wasn't even public until very recently. I shot 50 Cent. This is me as a college freshman, finally embarrassed about my sci-fi Star Wars theme raps, wanting to make a real lyrical piece of work. So I made all the beats on my MacBook in my dorm, and I handed this out at an event called Mad Real Mondays, which was actually really cool. A lot of backpackers, freestyle battling, doing graffiti, and amazingly, it got me kind of accepted into the scene, and people said that I could rap.
Are those eyes open? Let me show you the method for the records I've broken. If you breathe easy, you leave MCs choking. But thus far, this lesson seems unspoken.
Aerial Punk. I thought it was a good idea to make the cover a drawing of 2 dogs making out. And a lot of people have told me they didn't listen because that was on the cover. So eventually I put it out remastered with the picture of me as a child on it, which was the least offensive image I could think of.
And I tell them mine is a mirror and my eyes are made of ears. Final fluids, Mountain Dew. Feel my power, you.
Music you can't listen to because it doesn't exist. This is kind of my Beastie Boys Check Your Head. It jumps genre to genre. There's folk on there, there's industrial rock, there's backpacker rap, and I'm really fucking happy with it. I actually got the logo from the CD tattooed on my chest.
My crusty girl. First saw her when she asked me for change. Shaved her head and she kept the bangs. All I know is her stupid street name. My real name is Dumpster Juice. My crusty girl.
Lost Wuzik in the spirit of the Wu-Tang Clan. It has all my friends on it, and it only came out on CD. It came with a pamphlet of original little cartoons, sketches of everybody that rapped on it with their bios written up in a really funny way.
We take the fifth, then I'll lay the mix in Ableton. The aim is this, never trying for the greatest hits, just creating scripts you could fry a side of bacon with.
My favorite rappers all have drug-induced psychosis. Had to see it from myself. I mixed 100 proof with doses. Went from punk-infused abode to cuddled in the cold under avenues and homeless. Now, older women want to rediscover youth with me, or relive it as we discuss the music scene.
10 short songs about longing. This truly was the beginning of me getting really weird, because as soon as I built some hype as a rapper in town, I announced a country album. But people actually went with it, which was surprising and encouraging. My only regret is that some of the album, I sound like Tom Waits for no reason.
Selling yesterday's dreams wrapped in tomorrow's paper. Whistling for a dog named kindness that you'll never find. And it's a cold, hard world, love.
Woodrow. It was this guy Paul Weber, and he was in a band called Anna and the X's that played like lounge folk jazz music. It was smooth, easy listening music. What Paul would do is take recordings of Anna and the X's and chop and screw them, slow them down, rearrange them, and make them gangster rap instrumentals that we would rap over. And I was part of a collection of rappers he had made that was backpacker lyrical guys and just straight hood as fuck gangster rappers. It was a whole lot of fun, and it's hard to say how many people actually listened. I do know that at one point we were in the top 100 plays on a website called SoundClick, but most of it's lost to time.
Fuck pop music. Shit, I pop pills that force me to do shit like stop. Mid-drop, sip up my spittle and riddle and pop more to look sure that I got skill.
The Body Snatchers. This is me and Tim the Bone Man doing horror-themed raps over beats I made from Rob Zombie songs.
Well, your pits will turn ill if you stick your dogs on me. Raise bodies from the grave. We rob zombies. See whack crews on stage. You bomb off.
Odd Souls. Van Ghost was producing a whole bunch of bangers. He was younger than me. He was in the scene. He was killing it. And he comes up to me one day at an open mic and tells me he's retiring. He's quitting rap. And I somehow convince him to give me his beats, but just rap on a few. Well, maybe rap on a few more, until we had a whole fucking album.
Start strong with the weekend. Pleasing to the ear when you're hearing all our feelings. Take a break from it. We say nothing, but we keep on speaking. Rhymes that we're weaving, and they don't have a meaning. Still a biting like they're teething.
Passive aggressive, just pass to your left. Have what is destined, but acting impressed. And I'm stacking my bets. I came to play the game.
Yo, I don't have to pretend with the pad and a pen. Left these trends while you stand on your head. Rose myself out, hold myself down, pull the bull out. Guess I'm whole now, I dug this hole out. Hail to the Computer Kid. I took a bunch of breaks from Radiohead songs, made them rap beats, and then sent them through this old drum machine from the 80s that bit crushed them, and then I rapped over that. And then Tim from North Village Recording distorted my voice and put it through tape filters. It's like a psychedelic backpacker rap nightmare, and I fucking love it. I eat trash as Dr. Ujeezy. Pompey said, You don't need loud beats. You're loud enough. So there are these jazzy, smooth beats, and I'm yelling my raps and doing them as fast as I can, all double time, and I guess people liked it.
Know these streets like an OG war. I so read that whole scene sucks. Drink only till I'm throwing up. Don't know me, don't know enough.
And the most popular project I've ever been on, I really just played drums. It's Task Force with our pizza split, aka Supercalifragilisticwickedfucking-awesome. It's like grindcore punk, except the guitarist is doing jazz chords. It's weird, it's out there. It was just the right music at the right time. We came out there and weirded people out. I just remember even shows that only had like 20 people at them, somehow there would still be crowd surfing. That's it, guys. I know that's not 50. I didn't talk about any of the compilation albums I've done, and I didn't talk about some of the more boring projects. I'm trying to make 10 albums in 2020, so I've only got 4 more to go. Thanks for sticking with me. Thanks for listening. Here's to another 50.